Welcome to Fun with Annuities with your host, me, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent. Can annuities be fun? Can contractual guarantees be fun? Absolutely they can. Find out the brutal facts about annuities with no sales pitches or high-pressure nonsense. Just the brutal and factual annuity truth, which is all you need to hear. Let's have some fun with annuities, and let's have that fun start right now. Welcome to Fun with Annuities. I'm your host, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, licensed in all 50 states. We are proud, happy, and so privileged to have a repeat guest on, the annuity architect himself, the master of the universe in the annuity space, live from Portland, Oregon, Mr. John Lenz. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Stan. It's nice to be called master of something.
Master of the universe. Absolutely. He just left the screen. For all those people that are joining us on the major podcast platforms, I want to thank you. And we're also showing our mugs on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel, both growing by leaps and bounds. And one of the reasons that this podcast, John, is growing by leaps and bounds is I don't talk as much and I let you talk. So we're going to let you talk. Now, we typically just freeform this because John and I do that a lot. We talk a lot about things, and I listen to John because he's one of the few people I really believe he just knows this stuff backwards and forwards. But I'm going to throw a broad topic at you, John, and I'm going to see if you can hit it out of the ballpark. I need your observations on the current SPIA market. SPIA, to all the humans out there, means Single Premium Immediate Annuity and non-annuity speak. So it's the godfather of all annuities. It's the pension annuity. What's going on in the SPIA world, John Lenz?
Well, this rise in interest rates has been really a positive for the annuity space in general, and SPIAs have really responded nicely, where the single premium immediate annuity is now buying a more robust monthly income. On top of that, the inflation concerns that people have led to a little interest in, what about this annuity payment going up every year? So several companies have historically offered some inflation adjustments that you can buy into the annuity payment,
and
3, 4, 5% a year.
Cost of living adjustment.
Right, COLA, cost of living adjustment.
Or CPIUs, which don't exist anymore, John, correct?
Yeah, I think the CPIU is a tough thing to do. Is we're going to find out when the Social Security starts throwing out a 9% adjustment, and that's going to mess up their actuarial calculations. But so insurance companies, rather than have to wonder what inflation might be in the future, generally limit it to a single-digit number.
So hold that thought for a second, just to further educate, because you know, John, I'm an edutainer at heart, which is a combination of the two. So what we're talking about, and you can shut up whatever ding and ring there in the background, John. I don't know what that was.
I was turning up my volume.
Okay, so COLA, you can choose a percentage, meaning that, hey, Stan the Annuity Man, America's annuity agent, I need my income to increase by 3%, 2%, 4% annually. So before you jump up and down and start high-fiving yourself on that comment, the annuity companies don't give it away. I give it back to you, John Lenz.
Well, here's what how the math works. I'm working on a case right now on a woman who's 72 or 3 years old. She's having to take her first RMD, and she's going to live to 100. Her mom lived to 98. Her dad lived into her 90s, and she's healthier than both of them. I mean, at 72, she's taking no drugs. I mean, no blood pressure medication, no cholesterol. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, she's got, if there's 100 women her age, a handful of them are going to make it to 100. She's going to be in that handful. She's lean and fit and active and happy. Doesn't smoke, drinks moderately. I mean, all the things that are going to get you, living a long time. So a big concern as an advisor is, and as a retiree, is, am I going to run out of money? And that's a real concern of hers. She doesn't have a huge amount of money, But she's got very little debt, kind of a predictable living expense. And so we're examining whether or not it makes sense to keep, blocks of $100,000, how we'll invest those. Some of those are invested in growth securities in the market. And then she's contemplating, hey, should I do this 4% 5-year, MYGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity rate, or should I use a SPIA and have lifetime income? So here's what I found. You put the money in at 3% growth and let it grow over time. $100,000 buys about $6,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But a 3% increase over time, if she does live out into her 90s,
mm-hmm.
the guaranteed return on her deposit is between 5.5% and almost 8%, with no variability. There's no way out of it. So she's very, very interested in that. It solves my problem as an advisor, because if she has a base level of income, she can invest some of her other assets for growth. So that's got me excited.
And that says a lot, because John is an exciting dude. I mean, he just walks in the room and the room just lights up. I mean, he is a electrical knob himself. That's interesting. And, having worked on Wall Street, worked in the World Trade Center before it fell, of course, 5 to 8% consistently gets a statue built of you in New York City. I mean, that's a consistent. People say, well, I love when people call, I'd like to get 8 to 9% consistently. I'm like, yeah, you and every other hedge fund.
Right.
I mean, you got to be realistic. Those numbers sound great and they're really fun in a bull market. But when we get into choppy markets like this, you realize how hard those numbers actually are. So I'm also finding people are now revisiting, can I live off the interest? I did a video recently called You've Won the Game, so why are you still playing? Which means you can actually peel off interest at higher levels if you got multiple millions of dollars and never touch the principal. And a lot of people just can't believe it's that simple now, because it's been so long since we could do that. Are you running into that as well?
Yeah. And you and I talked about that, I think, the last time we joined up in this venue, about creating an annuity ladder where,
Yep.
Today what I'm seeing, because of the way the interest rate curve is set, there's really no advantage to going out past about 5 or 6 years.
Correct.
Because the yield on a 5-year MYGA is, 4, 4.25, maybe even a little better. And the 10 years are about the same. So everybody wants to hedge their bet, thinking interest rates might go up. So $1 million generates $40,000 a year in income, and your principal's intact the entire time. Nothing wrong with that.
As Van Halen said, John Lenz, quote, "Everybody wants some, I want some too," unquote. And I think that pretty much sums up the MYGA. Everything to me is rock and roll, as you know, John. So,
yeah.
Without going into detail, that the MYGA rates here are creeping into that sales pitch dream of a lot of indexed annuities. Because if you can do 4.5%, then why would you risk 0 to get 6, right? Or
right.
So it's a little bit tougher sell. Let's talk about inflation, John. I know that when your friend, really close friend at the Fed, Miss Yellen, said it's transitory, I'm assuming you did not agree with that. But
yeah, Janet and I have not had coffee recently to talk about that. So I turned to my coin and flipped a coin, and it came up. Inflation seems to be, in my view, I'm concerned about it being here for the long term. I mean, it has been here for the long term, but maybe not at the 2 or 3% we've been used to for so long.
Well, obviously, I petitioned early on and loudly for you to be Fed chair, and they went with a guy named Powell instead. I don't know why, but do you believe that he's going to continually raise rates, or do you think this is the last bullet in his gun going into the July Fed hike?
I'm going to consult my.
Yeah,
I think he's going to continue to raise rates until we see a mild recession, some kind of cool down. It's amazing it works anyway, right? Money in digital ones and zeros in accounts. I don't envy those people. I mean, they've already admitted they missed the early signs and didn't react appropriately. So, we'll see. I personally would like to see a very soft landing and everybody live happily ever after and puppies and rainbows. That's my deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're all about puppies and rainbows here at Fun with Annuities. Inflation adjusted lifetime income. Do you have any insight on that, John? That's not sales pitchy. Of course, you don't sales pitch. You just hit them straight in the
Oh,
forehead.
no, I'm the numbers guy.
2x4 facts. Yeah, let's talk about realistic inflation adjusted strategies for income.
Well, okay, so again, a strategy using an insurance product that's safe. It's hard to use a safe product to go into an environment that we don't know if you're going to have to take risk. Most people think about hedging inflation risk with growth assets, right, in the market. Mm-hmm. But you found out recently how you can lose 20 or 25% of your money in a hurry using that strategy. And that's no big deal if you're 40 years old and in a 401k plan. But if you're 70 or 80 and you're drawing down your portfolio, that looks like death warmed over. And so what the industry is doing, in addition to this inflation-adjusted immediate annuity guarantee, is they're coming up with index annuity riders that increase the monthly income based on the performance of market indexes.
Right.
And those seem to be catching on a little bit.
But don't they lower the initial payout to make up for that, John? They don't give anything away, correct?
Sure, absolutely. Companies that build in an inflation either have to charge more on the front end or start at a lower benchmark. And as you might imagine, there's actuaries at insurance companies that design all these things, and they make the break-even point somewhere out there about your average life expectancy.
You think?
Yeah. So where advisors like you outthink the insurance company is, we're only going to recommend these for people who have better odds of living a long period of time because they're healthy, wealthy, wise, and have parents that were the same.
I agree. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. But falling into that category of, me and you are always walking the streets of Portland, New York City, Las Vegas, Chicago, and other places. After we go see the concert, we're looking for a place that says we can have our cake and eat it too, which leads me to my next question. Return of premium multi-year guarantee annuities. John, I want to buy a multi-year guarantee annuity now, but what if the rates change? I want to be able to pivot, and I wanna. What do we do?
Right. Yeah, that is something that is relatively new and more interesting today for a segment of people. And that is, as you talk to people during, every day, they want to invest their money at a good rate, but they're worried that if they do that today, interest rates are going to go up tomorrow.
Yep.
And so people still sit on their money in a money market, with it not keeping up with inflation, and they pass up a 3 or a 4% interest rate guarantee. So a couple of good companies, one of them here in Portland, Oregon.
John. We can't mention names.
No, we won't do that. One here in Portland, one out in New York.
You mentioned cities. Very nice. Go ahead.
States. Well, in the United States.
In the United States of America.
Yeah.
Greatest country on earth, John.
Likely approved in the state that your listener is in. You can buy a 3, 5, 10-year rate guarantee. And if interest rates go up and spike up, and you are in this moment of remorse and regret for putting your money in a 3 or 5 year place, and now you could get more, you can go to the insurance company and say, I would like all of my money back. And
original principal.
So your penalty would be the interest that you've earned in the interim. And it really becomes an easy math question. If you invested today and we're getting 4, and 6 months from now you could get 6, you'd forego 6 months worth of interest so that you could get a 6% return, a 2% improvement over the next 5 years. So those are available, and they come with a slightly lower interest rate up front because the insurance company has to go out and buy a hedge against you leaving.
What's the difference between this of now? I've just texted my intellectual property lawyer to trademark Pivot MYGA, which is what you just talked about. But what's the difference between a Pivot MYGA and a traditional fixed from way back in the day?
Well, a traditional fixed way back in the day had a declining surrender penalty on the back end of it. You know, back in the day, they were almost 7 to 10 years or 15 years in duration.
Correct.
And so if interest rates went up and you left, you might leave behind 9% of your principal. So this new Pivot MYGA.
I like that. Now stop for a second, John. That's a really good name. It's a Pivot MYGA.
It's a lot more interesting than ROP, which people don't really understand, which stands for return of premium. But Pivot MYGA.
Here's the other name I had for it, John, just because I'm a marketing genius, as you know. I was going to call it the Fork in the Road MYGA, short-term fork MYGA, but I thought that could cause problems.
Yeah, I'd stay away from anything that sounds like fork. Stick with pivot.
So it's not a fork in the road, because as I always tell people, when you come to the fork in the road, what do? You pick it up, John. Okay, but fork in the road MYGA, no, it's a Pivot MYGA. So let's keep going on the Pivot MYGA.
Let's say that you had a couple $100,000. Yes. You might say, gosh, I could set on, I'll invest 100 today at 4%, and I'm going to sit on 100 and wait for interest rates to go up. Well, you're sitting in a money market at 1, and you're losing opportunity costs of 3 a year. So you can invest 100 at 4, and then put the other 100 in the Pivot MYGA at 3.7. So you're only losing 30 basis points, 1/3%. And if interest rates spike in the next year, bang, you leave, get your 5 or 6%.
Leave, John. What do you do? The word
you actually, you would take your money and go to another company at the higher rate.
Exactly. I'm gonna create a whole. I mean, I create genres every day, John, as you know. You pivot and go to the higher rate. We're pivoting to the higher rate. We're always pivoting because it's a Pivot MYGA. Now, do you see this Pivot MYGA strategy sweeping the fruited plain of carriers, or are we just have a bunch of the pioneers take all the arrows situation?
There's a couple of companies that are doing this right now.
But I'm saying, will people follow, John, just because it's a good idea?
Oh, yeah. No. This is, people are doing this. They're basically paying a small premium for the option to get a higher interest rate. It takes somebody like you to explain it to somebody, because if you looked at a spreadsheet and you saw a 4 and a 3.7, you'd probably choose the 4.
But if you claim it as Pivot MYGA, and there's corresponding swag and merchandise that goes along with it, and the ad campaign with me as the front person, Pivot MYGAs do have a possibility of sweeping the country, because people do want their. I mean, that's what I run into. You know, in the annuity industry, everyone's like, "Can't you? I bet you can't wait till interest rates rise." I'm like, kinda, but you know what? People, it just paralyzes them, because now everyone becomes an interest rate analyst, and I truly believe that Mr. Powell is. I'm like, you don't know. I don't know. John Lenz doesn't know, but everyone turns into an analyst at this point.
Now, and we watched this as interest rates fell. People wanted to wait till rates went back up, or they wanted to just invest short term. I mean, for the last 25 years, the smartest thing you could have done in the annuity space is to buy 10-year rate guarantees, because you got to locked in these 8s and 9s and 6s and 5s instead of the shorter term. Now, interest rates are going up, and I had lots of people say, "John, call me back when interest rates get 3% or more. Now, call me back when rates get about 4%. And now they're like, "Oh, interest rates are going up, and the Fed's going to raise rates," as if that was going to move the annuity market. And people forget that Fed rate has something to do with the Federal Reserve and banks, not so much annuity rates. Inflation really is going to drive 10-year Treasury yields and the annuity marketplace. So this really gives people an opportunity to hedge their bet for a small amount of money.
I like it. I have a bunch of, I get 400 emails a day, and a lot of them are like, pay me back when the 3%, 3-year hits 5%. And like a year ago, we looked back at the records, and it was when the 3-year hit 4%. I'm like, well, I remember a long time ago when I used to wear a suit and a tie, John. I looked very, very spiffy. There was no hat, no logos, but I was selling municipal bonds for Morgan Stanley. I could not give away 6% AAA munis tax-free during the .com era. It seems eerily similar right now. But there's a lot of people that, by the way, and when I did that, for people that understand munis, they were non-callable. I still get Christmas cards from people that I sold them
Right.
to a long time ago because they're getting 6% tax free. No, they're not available, so please don't email me. So
Yeah.
Pivot MYGAs, that's fantastic. In the industry, they call them return of premium. So that would be a Roth MYGA, which means nothing. That's the reason the annuity industry is a very small industry. They have the marketing brain of a piece of cardboard. So Pivot MYGAs are the new things. But between Pivot MYGAs, John, and my MYGA to SPIA campaign that I'm on right now, man, I mean, we're trailblazing out here. But I give you full credit for inspiring me on a daily basis to think outside the box, which is what you do.
Well, I know you're good at names. Pivot MYGA might be a good band name.
Pivot MYGA could be kind of like a new wave band, you know, like the Flock of Seagulls hair and stuff for people that remember that.
Well, our industry is really good at creating these acronyms that no one understands. So
Pivot MYGA makes total sense.
MYGA.
I explained Pivot MYGA to a 9-year-old. Of course, everything I do is to 9-year-olds, no offense, 9-year-olds, and they understand.
The one person that doesn't know that multi-year guarantee annuity is MYGA. Yeah.
Pivot, you know what it's called, John? It's not Pivot MYGA. And here's the acronym, and then we're going to move on because I've got so much I want to talk to you about. But right now is what's called podcast gold, John. What we're doing right now, it's lightning in a bottle. We got to catch it. It's a PRA. It's a pivot rate annuity.
Pivot rate. There we go.
It's a pivot rate annuity, PRA. And so let me text my lawyer now. We'll get on that. So on to better things, because we did solve that. When people are thinking about taking income right now, John Lenz, or deferring it and waiting, what are you telling them?
That is,
is that a good question?
The second leading question today that I do get that regularly because the industry is been set up forever. The annuity industry was founded on a concept of income for a period of years, generally for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And that's a really interesting foundation because it turns out we as humans need income every month to pay those bills that are so semi-important, like food and heating and then you're part of the world, air conditioning.
Yes.
And rent or mortgage. And it's very hard sometimes to take a lump sum of money and determine how long it's going to last. So the industry said, we'll take the risk, give us the money, and we'll make you a monthly payment. And a lot of people get a little bit antsy about that, right? It's, what if I die early? Well, I don't hear anybody complaining about, what if I pay into Social Security my whole life and then die when I'm 66?
Right.
Was that a bad deal? No, because you don't need Social Security anymore because you're dead.
Yeah. And I always say to people, John, you can write this down if you want to get a pen out. Death is not a good strategy.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I just soon not implement that part of my plan yet.
Yes.
But so income now or income later, it's we have a lot of practice in that as advisors because people, who have retail clients that are making retirement decisions, should I take Social Security early, which you can do at 62 now, or normal retirement age, which is about 66, and moving up over time. And of course, the actuaries at the Social Security Administration have figured it all out that if you take it early or you wait or you defer even out to 70, that the amount of money you receive is going to be about the same when you reach your average life expectancy. So this whole income now or income later comes down to how long you think you're going to live, or your plan is built around a certain number of years. And if your parents are still alive and you're in your 60s, you should plan on living at least as long as they do under normal circumstances. So I love to do a spreadsheet that shows if you annuitize now or take income from your annuity now, let's say on $100,000, that's $6,500 a year. Or you wait 10 years where you could take out $13,000 a year, which one's better? And the answer is, depends on how long you live. So for this case of this person that I'm talking about now, if they live to age 83, it's exactly a toss-up. But if you live, which happens to be the average life expectancy for a woman, 83 is her average life expectancy, meaning half the people her age will be dead by then, the other half will still be living. My client thinks they're going to be in the living half. Of course, most people do, but only half are right. So if you have reasonable, demonstrable evidence like living parents, good health, no meds, you would want to take income later. So start that annuity cooking, growing, earning tax deferred magical interest. That's eighth wonder of the world. And then turn it on as you get a little older and then reap the benefits for the rest of your life.
I always tell people there's no ROI until you die, and I really can't give that to you until you die. And I always offer the really nice gesture, John, that no one's taken me up on. I will come to the funeral and I will sing that to you. I have a song that I put together. It's called ROI When You Die, but no one's ever done that. Maybe, how about you, John? If you die, can I come to your funeral and sing that? ROI? Will your wife no, I doubt if your wife will let me do that.
I've got a little life insurance that has the same issue. What's the rate of return on your life insurance premium? Well, just tell me when you're going to go out. And the sooner the better on that. And of course, with an annuity, the longer you live, the higher your rate of return.
It's really that simple, John. I mean, this whole annuity life insurance thing is really, really simple. I crack up when I see agents make it difficult, and I'm going, just make it simple. I mean, this is not rocket science. It doesn't have to be. People like you can turn it into rocket science and then bring it back down to the minions of us like you and explain it to us, which leads me to my next topic, John. Another acronym that makes absolutely no sense in the annuity space, but I get questions on it all day long, and it does not equate to wrestling. MVA. It doesn't mean I beat Hulk Hogan in the cage match. What's MVA, John?
I have to go back.
Market value adjustment.
I have to go back. Because
wait a minute, did I just trigger something?
I have to rewind and it'll work. I forgot to tell you that ROI when you die.
Yes.
Subtext line.
Yes. The
woman that takes this 73-year-old and does the inflation adjusted income.
Yes.
Has a 5% ROI in 20 years and a 7.89% return if she makes it to 100 guaranteed. That is a fantastic number for her, and she plans on getting there. So MVA.
I would sing that with a band.
There you go.
I would transition to the 8.9 on the bridge, when the guitars come in, and I can see that happening. Okay. Market value adjustment, John Lenz. I know annuities are always hedging so they can make the money. Is that what this is?
No, I mean, market value adjustment is the way an insurance company puts a page in the contract that says, if you leave early and interest rates have gone up or down, we're going to adjust the money we send you according to a formula. And that formula is tied to the inverse relationship between bonds and interest rates, which I know just flipped a bunch of switches off on people like, I don't want to hear about that. I've heard, Bottom line is this, that if interest rates...
You could have said flux capacitor at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. The flux capacitor of the annuity. Now, if interest rates go up during the next few years and you want to get out of your annuity and you don't have this return of premium feature, then you're going to pay a penalty to the insurance company because they're going to have to liquidate the investments that they purchase with your money at a loss. And until in addition to the surrender charge. Correct. Yeah. So some people don't like that or don't understand it or don't want it. So a few good companies that are likely approved in the state where your listener is today.
That's every state, John. The annuity man is licensed in all 50 states, as you know.
So this is not in every state, but most states have a product that says we're not going to charge you this extra feature, and usually there's a nominal interest rate charge to that. It might be a tenth of a percent, or a quarter of a percent in interest, but you can avoid that penalty. And if you look at it as the cup half full, I'm a cup half full guy.
You are.
Is that if you'll accept the MVA, like you buy a 5-year annuity, you think you're going to be in it for 5 years, right? And so if you'll accept this market value adjustment, you'll get paid a higher interest rate because the insurance company's got a little protection against their investment. So today you might get 4.25 with an MVA and 4 without.
It all comes down to allocation proportion. I always say don't put too much money into annuities. I think this plays into that. People always ask about MVA, and I'm like, it really doesn't apply unless you're cashing the darn thing out midstream. If you're holding it to a duration term, then it's irrelevant. It's not part of it. But if you said, Stan, I heard John Lenz, and he's so impressive with that deep voice, and he talked about MVAs. I want MYGAs without MVAs. I can do that. I can filter that for you because that's what we do here at The Annuity Man. And we can find those for you if you don't even want to go there. But like John said, annuity companies don't give anything away. Sometimes the ones without MVAs are competitive and compared to the ones with. It just depends. But we certainly can do that and find those for you. It's kind of like picking a seat on a plane, John, right? Kind of. A MYGA plane.
There you go.
A pivot rate annuity.
Well, I think people want flexibility, and it's not an all or nothing proposition. As I was saying earlier, you can allocate some of your money and just get yourself a guarantee of 5% or 4%, for 5 years and stay there. And with the other money, you can make this adjustment in your annuity portfolio that says, I've got some flexibility to get out early and reinvest at a higher interest rate. And what's the cost? Just the interest that you earned.
I think instead of MVA, it should be an IRP interest rate play. Call it an IRP. Or no, actually do something better with that, John. You call it an IRV, like Irv Johnson, like the guy that you're counting IRV. Interest rate valuation. So what's my interest rate valuation when I cash it out? Why did they call it market rate? I need to be hired by the industry.
They call it market value. So it relates to bonds, right? If you sold bonds, if you sold somebody a muni bond for $100,000 and interest rates turn around the next day and went up, and that person wanted out of that muni bond, you might get them out for $99,000.
Well, my question to people would be, do you want IRV on your policy or do you want IRV off of your policy? And you have a picture of IRV. You know what IRV looks like, right? I mean, he's IRV. And IRV, do you want IRV on your policy and he's sitting there and, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to talk to IRV if you're going to hold it duration. But if you don't and interest rates move against you, IRV's coming out. And you don't want to talk to IRV. IRV hadn't brushed his teeth. IRV's IRV. And I think I've solved two things. So now I'm going to call market value adjustment IRVs. And I'm going to call MYGAs with return of principal pivot rate annuities. And I think people will understand that. I guarantee you, John, that someone's going to call me and say, I don't want to IRV on my policy. Now, I'll know exactly what that is. The problem is I have to take all my employees and say, here's what IRV means. And you're going to have to too, John.
Because they might be the only 20 people that know what they are in the country. So
what? Man, when I moniker something, John, it sweeps the country. It really does. Let's talk stretch IRAs, John. I mean, when the Secure Act comes out, finally, I guess whenever, first of all, it's going to be good because Ed Slott's going to have a heart attack if these things keep coming out. He doesn't like this thing at all. Yeah. People don't know who Ed Slott is. He's Dr. IRA, man. He's a smart dude in the room. His people are smart. I'm saying all that because I want him on my podcast, John. But let's talk about stretch IRAs and what you have found to, instead of waiting on Congress. I know you're a big fan of Congress, John. I know you wait on them to change things for the better, but since they're kind of meandering here, what are you doing for stretch IRAs?
Well, we've had to change. A teeny bit of background. If you're married and your spouse passes away, you don't have a stretch IRA, right? You get to assume that IRA as the new owner and treat it as your own. Mm-hmm. But if you're not married to the person who's made you the beneficiary of their IRA, such as any non-spouse beneficiary, let's say my father passes away, he's still living, and he's got an IRA and he names me the beneficiary. Well, I'm still working. I don't particularly want to take his IRA in a lump sum and add it onto my tax return and give a big chunk of it back to the feds and the great state of Oregon. So what I'd like to be able to do is to take this out over a time period. Well, I used to be able to take it out over, a period of time based on my age, which would be, maybe 25 years, except Congress, in all their wisdom, decided, we're going to do away with that. And we're going to make the non-spouse beneficiary take this money out within 10 years. And that's just unfortunate. So a lot of people are now kind of throwing up their hands and just taking the money in a lump sum and paying tax, which obviously was Congress's intent. And there's been a debate about whether you need to start taking payments now or take it out over 10 years. What I found is for people who are the age of a typical parent when they're passing away, their 50s, 60s, maybe a little later, that they're maybe not ready to take all that money at once. And so we're structuring it in a 10-year immediate annuity. 10 payments, you get interest on your account, boom, every year on, what is it today, the 19th of July, you're going to get a check for 10 grand, and that's going to end in 10 years. You're compliant with the law, and you stretched out your tax burden and earn interest in the interim. So that's what we're doing mostly. And a lot of insurance companies have just kind of thrown in the towel and said, we're not going to handle stretch IRAs for non-spouses. But a few companies are still doing it, and we're seeing some interest there.
Yeah, I think the companies their lawyers got involved and said, you know what, just from an exposure standpoint, can we not even do these? Because I'm sure they ran the numbers as like 1.2% of their business. And they're like, don't even go there.
Yeah, well, what I found is, let's take a person who's 60, 65, and they're contemplating Social Security, and now all of a sudden they're the beneficiary of an income stream from an IRA. Well, they can take that money and push the Social Security payment out until they're 70, which gives them an 8% average annual increase in their payment, and live on the IRA, and then boom, higher Social Security for life. So there's some interesting planning opportunities with the new stretch IRA regs.
John, what else is new in your world? You wake up every morning trying to slay the dragon, do what's right for people. What's keeping you going, brother? I mean, you're an energetic, you're a thought leader out here. What's making you happy in the industry?
Yeah, thanks. That's an interesting question. I found more interest recently as I approach retirement years and think about the next 20 or 25 years, what my income is going to look like. I found it very interesting to help people structure their income and build a roadmap and a plan. Because the typical person gets to retirement and they're so used to accumulating money, they haven't thought about distribution and don't really have a good idea of what their 401k will deliver over their lifetime, or the best way to handle it. So that's still entertaining for me. I'm still passionate about that, and I love to assist advisors in building structured income plans. We've talked in the past about how to structure income for people who might have a child that isn't really good with handling lump sums of money. That's interesting to me every day. And then I get to talk to guys like you. That's interesting.
Absolutely.
To a point.
Absolutely. I mean, I call that kind of beneficiary planning lovingly handcuffing your beneficiaries.
Yeah.
I know that I do that with my two daughters, that if I do show up dead unexpectedly, John, and that would be tragic in a myriad of ways, you need to probably just do a little bit of investigation because of the life insurance issues. Just my daughters, we have that annual thing every year where we talk about, okay, here's what happens. And they look and they go, really? And then they look at me like a wolf looking at a wounded elk. I guess I'm an elk to them, John. What do you think? Big,
that's right. You could
lumbering.
You could be a lumbering elk.
I've always wanted to ask you this, but I haven't. Roth IRAs, do you trust the government not to change the rules?
I'm afraid too many people might be listening to this, and so I'm going to answer absolutely. I trust the government with all my heart and everything.
You do, don't you?
I think my nose just grew. You know, I'm not a huge Roth IRA fan. I know many of my peers are.
Mm-hmm. I'm not either, by the way. Never, ever, ever have I advised any. And for the people out there, I'm wrong. Trust me, I'm wrong. You're right. I'm just saying, Social Security used to be tax-free. That's all I'm saying.
Here's my 30 seconds on a Roth IRA.
Okay.
If
30?
you
Okay, go ahead.
if you can start your clock. If you pay if you took if you had a $200,000 IRA and you converted half of it into a Roth and you paid the tax today, and then you invested the IRA and the Roth at the same interest rate and paid taxes on the same rate when you took it out, you have identical amounts of money. There's no difference. At the end of the day, if tax rates don't go up, then, and they do go down actually in your retirement, when you know, my tax rate's going to go down in retirement because I'm going to be making less money. And so a Roth IRA, why pay taxes in a high tax bracket today when I might be able to pay them in, you know, a retiree's tax bracket? Now, if I'm wrong and tax rates go way up, then I might wish that I had paid taxes today to avoid paying them in a higher bracket in the future. So this is one of those things where
I never have found myself wishing to pay more taxes, John.
I just spun my thing, and my little coin said tax rates are going to be the same in your retirement years for me.
And that's
the coin stood on the edge.
No, that's it. What new products are you hearing the whispers about that you can't share with us, but you are going to about? Do you hear anything new out there? I know that annuity companies are trying to get ahead of this demographic tidal wave with all kinds of fancy stuff.
There is a big interest right now in companies trying to come up with an annuity that's adjustable with interest rates. That's been tried in the past.
It has.
There's some talk about, again, inflation. But if there was some brand new revolutionary great idea coming out, I haven't heard about it yet. I mean,
and if you haven't heard about it, and if I haven't heard about it, then they're pretty secretive. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying it's not out there, but I typically hear the whispers like you do.
It's not like the electric car, right? There's no electric annuity coming. Innovation comes in really small bites in a mature industry. And this is a very mature industry.
Old and stodgy and dusty.
Yeah, it's I've said it before,
overweight,
it's
a little
boring.
chunky, as they say. Yeah, just a tad chunky around the middle.
I mean, when your money goes up every day, it's just not much. It's not that much fun.
No, I agree. And the calls about, hey, Stan, are Bitcoin annuities coming anytime soon? That one's kind of calmed down a little bit, because at 60,000, I'm like, you might want to calm down on that. And then it went to 40. I'm like, they kept coming. I doubt if they're going to do it at 40. I just, you know, we'll see what happens to Bitcoin. Of course, I'm going to be wrong on Bitcoin, John, as I always am.
Oh, the life insurance industry will be a long time in coming to put a cryptocurrency account inside of an annuity, I believe. There's just, the industry is so regulated by the government that they have to basically approve any and all investments that go into the reserves for insurance companies and do reports for adequacy and financial ratings.
Oh my gosh.
So how do you put a Bitcoin backing some of these annuities?
This is the Ethereum FIA, John. It's on Ethereum and coin. It's got a Coinbase income rider and Ethereum accumulation value. And people are like, what are you talking about? We'll see. Yeah. We'll see what it all comes down. I think the jaded view I have with it, John, and I don't have a lot of jaded views, as you know, is, you know, I was around like you when the internet kind of first started, and the MySpaces and the AOLs were the first ones there. And people go, MySpace, what's that? I'm like, exactly. Point well taken. We'll see what happens with that. But I read an interesting stat the other day that over 50% of cryptocurrency owners as of in 2022 have owned that cryptocurrency less than a year.
Yeah, I have a Coinbase account, and they show the stats on the cryptocurrencies that I own. And they have, I think, an average hold time of like 60 days or less. So I'm apparently the only dummy that's holding mine long term.
John Lenz, you could write a book on, we found one person doing buy and hold with cryptocurrency, and he's in Portland. It's unbelievable what he's doing. How about index annuities, John? You know, people always say, Stan, why do you hate index annuities? I don't. I sell a ton of them, but I sell them properly without hype and over promotion and no back tested and all that stuff. What's going on there? What's going on in my beloved index annuity world?
Well, I think people who are getting their index annuity renewal statements right now are getting a 0. People who are getting their mutual fund quarterly reports are seeing it down 20. And so the annuity world is sort of singing 0 is your hero.
I hate that, John. You can't say that. That's horrific.
I'm just saying, in my world, people are calling up and saying, hey, I didn't get any money. I didn't have any earnings on my annuity. And I said, well, how much did you lose? Well, I didn't lose anything. I said, okay, I can't say 0 is your hero because that's trademark.
You can't, because I'll go crazy. I'll lose my mind. If you said 0 is my hero on my hybrid annuity, I might have a coronary right here on the podcast.
Oh, I'm on your hybrid annuity, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, if you threw both of those in at the same time, I'd be like, I mean, no, come on, man.
Nobody wants to earn 0, but even more than that, nobody wants to lose money. And so I would say that right now, I think clients that I've talked to are happy that they have assets that haven't gone down in value, and hopeful there's a better year ahead. We're starting to see 5-year and 10-year and longer term returns on these annuities. And what we're seeing is rates that are 50 to 100 basis points, so 0.5% of 1% to 1% above what a fixed rate would have done during that period of time, which I think is in line with expectations.
That's in line.
Maybe less than in line with marketing materials.
That's true. I always say index annuities are not too good to be true, but they can be pretty darn good. You know, they're just not what they're promoted and hyped to be. And I do think that we need to, as an industry, clean up the back testing numbers that are shown. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, called him Mr. FIAX, because he comes on and talks about index annuities. For any index that hasn't been, if it's been around 2 years, then we can only back test it for 2 years. You can't take an index plural, that's been made up out of thin air and back test it 10 years because it hadn't existed. I think if we just did those basic things as an industry, I think we'd win back some trust.
Yeah, I agree. There's, people argue that, well, we can back test the constituent components of the annuity. If it had the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ and the Hang Seng built into it, we can back test each of those. But back testing an algorithm, I understand your concern there. And there's some legislation around those and some regulations around those back testing numbers.
I back tested an exercise program recently where it showed me doing 10 years of 1,000 crunches a day. And the results, John, were phenomenal. I showed those to my wife and she goes, let me know when that happens. Okay. She didn't believe the back tested numbers. I said, they're going to come true. Look, they're back tested. 1,000 crunches a day results in a washboard ab that you can't imagine. And what does that have to do with annuities, John? It has to do with annuities because we can't do back tested numbers. Don't they have some kind of regulation with life insurance, index universal life, that you can't do that?
There are regulations called AG 49 and AG 49A that deal with.
That sounds like a gun.
With back testing. Yeah, it was
I'm talking about AG 49 sounds bad. Sounds like
not really. It's actuarial guideline number 49 that is trying to make sure that, the industry delivers sound, ethical disclosure and illustrations on insurance to people. It's a highly regulated business, but at the same time, insurance companies come up with ways to, make proposals and illustrations that are pretty optimistic.
And I call those BFIs, John, brutally factual illustrations instead of AG 49s. I don't know.
That's a subject for another podcast.
It really is, John. Of course, how I end these things, everyone waits to the end because they want to hear the mic drop moment, John, where I throw the ball to you and in your infinite wisdom, experience, just overall insight on humanity, your philanthropy, everything that goes into what makes up John Lenz, you're going to say something that they're going to shut the podcast off and it's going to make their day. So I'm going to count you down and then you're going to give me that. So go ahead. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
I'm going to stick with my knitting and say that I look at my portfolio and I'm able to invest my portfolio for long-term growth because I've got a guaranteed base. And that's something I do wake up to and think about. I've been times in my life where I had too much of my money in equities, and I was looking at it a lot during the day, and I know how to feel really bad at the end of the day if you lose a bunch of money. But having a balance, and so balance isn't all about finances, it's about your personal life and spending loving time with your family and friends and doing things you like.
Yep.
But if you're not balanced financially, it's hard to make all that other stuff work because of the underlying worry. That's in my world.
And that's John Lenz, the annuity architect, good friend, very smart person, and an absolute treasure to have in the annuity industry. Period. End of story. There's no argument about that. And the growing fan base continues to grow as he's on the Fun with Annuities podcast. John, I really appreciate you being on. I appreciate all the listeners on all the major podcast platforms and on watching us on the Fun with Annuities YouTube channel. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to Fun with Annuities. Please hit the subscribe button and make sure to go to my site at theannuityman.com, where you can run your own SPIA, DIA, and QLAC quotes and see a live feed of the best MYGA fixed rates in the country, and even get indexed and income rider quotes as well. You can also sign up for my 6 annuity owner's manual books, and I'll ship them for free and under no obligation. I also encourage you to schedule a one-on-one call with me, Stan the Annuity Man, so we can have a full discussion of your specific situation. It will be the best brutally factual and truthful advice you will ever get, and that's one guarantee you should definitely take advantage of. So join me next time for the #1 annuity podcast on the planet, Fun with Annuities.